The University of Ottawa is facing some criticism after it stopped a yoga class or suspended a yoga class that was on campus for students with disabilities. Now, the reason why they decided to suspend the class is because of issues regarding cultural appropriation. Now, apparently, the instructor of this yoga class got an email from an organization that was very concerned about individuals doing yoga, but not really understanding the symbolic cultural references behind it. Let me give you the details.
Oh, boy.
All right. The email reportedly said the student group wanted to be sensitive to how it practiced yoga since the cultures from which yoga originates have experienced oppression, cultural genocide, and diasporas due to colonialism and Western supremacy. So Hindu American Foundation co-founder Dr. Asim Shukla praised the school for having a conversation about yoga's roots and possible cultural appropriation. In fact, he said, "We believe that teaching yoga to campus students and respecting yoga's roots is not intrinsically in conflict."
Can I follow up? Because he said something else after that. He said it's not intrinsically in conflict, which sounded pretty good to me.
Yeah.
But that he said, then we would agree with concerned students about the legitimate risks of exoticization and appropriation.
Right.
You wouldn't, don't make my culture exotic. Okay, all right. So I just wanted to be clear on what his position is. And I laughed as you read the first quote there. I'll explain why I laughed. But let's now give you the rest of the story.
So yoga originally comes from India. I don't know if there's some sort of discrimination against Indians in this institution. From what I've read and from what I've tried to dig up, I haven't found anything about that. Now, cultural appropriation is a very controversial issue, but it's easy to understand when you put it in the context of African Americans, for instance, right? So you have beauty magazines that glorify women who are white who wear the afro. And it's like, oh, isn't that glorious? It's so beautiful. Oh my God, they're so edgy. But at the same time, when black women wear their natural hair, let's say in an afro, they don't get jobs as a result of that. They get criticized as a result of that. So that's an issue with cultural appropriation, right? Where the actions of white people are celebrated, but the same actions done by a minority that, is actually part of their culture is criticized, okay? I don't know how this applies to that. How does this apply to that? We're now coddling college students, not just in the United States, but throughout the world, where everyone is sensitive to everything. We have safe spaces. We have people talking about how they don't want to have any type of speech that might be deemed offensive. You have students denying certain speakers from speaking at their school because they don't want to be offended and that person has controversial viewpoints. Look, a college campus is for differing ideas. You're supposed to get offended on a college campus. If you're not offended, you're not learning. You need to know about other perspectives and other ideas. Now, here's the thing. We have appropriated everything, right? Yeah. That's what America is. It's a melting pot. It really is. I mean, yes. So I'm a bad person for doing yoga now? Really? Because I don't understand the historical context of Indians and where yoga comes from? I need a history lesson for every fucking thing I do in my life?
Damn. Okay. All right. So I'm going to say something slightly controversial here. I have mixed feelings about cultural appropriation. So Anna pointed out the downsides of it, which are real, okay? Now, the upsides of it is that it's called America. And so to the point, I'll give you examples, right? So we maliciously appropriated pizza from the Italians, and we made it much better by adding cheese. Okay, and then the world celebrated. Okay, the Italians, they didn't think to put cheese on it. Come on, you knuckleheads. What were you thinking? Okay, so we appropriated matzo ball soup. We appropriated lox and cream cheese. Delicious. Okay, Elvis appropriated black music. Now, that's where some of the criticism comes into play, right?
Right, yes.
So I'm not dismissing the criticism. Both sides have fair points to make, right? So now, on the other hand, though, on the upside of Elvis's appropriation, well, black culture started becoming more and more mainstream. And now, black culture is pretty much the mainstream entertainment culture in America. So there is an upside to appropriation.
I mean, right? That's an interesting perspective. I'm not sure I agree with it. But I think of the Rolling Stones, who I love. I'm obsessed with the Rolling Stones. But their influence was largely from Muddy Waters, who was a black performer. Now, he had fame, he had success, there's no question about that, but certainly not to the same extent that the Rolling Stones did.
So I hear you.
Yeah.
So should the Rolling Stones cut a check for Muddy Waters? Good, maybe,
yeah.
Right? I'm going to leave that up to them. And so is it frustrating that Elvis Presley and Rolling Stone and Eminem get most of the money, right? Yeah, I get that frustration. It's not illegitimate, right? At the same time, this is all how we grow together. I know some people are going to get really mad at this, but I think it's in some ways a compliment to say, hey, that's really good. More of us should do that, right? And I know that it's frustrating that you need a white barrier to welcome it into mainstream, right?
I think intent matters. Intent really matters. And so, look, people who are practicing, this is a yoga class at the university for students who are suffering disabilities. There was no malicious intent by this yoga class, right? Now, people are trying to change the narrative of why this happened all of a sudden. There's one student who's claiming, oh, it wasn't a popular yoga class, that's why they decided to suspend it. But it doesn't change the fact that the instructor got the email saying that people were concerned about the class being insensitive because of cultural appropriation.
She got the email. She says there were 60 students that were participating. So like this whole new idea that, no, there was nobody participating, it sounds fishy to me,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Why would she make it up? Well, she didn't make up the email, right? So I would be very, very surprising. And for the Hindu gentleman who says, hey, respect our culture, but in a sense, they're celebrating your culture by doing the yoga. In a very large sense. Don't ruin it. It sounds like the right-wing fundamentalists who say don't do yoga because it's secretly trying to brainwash you and turn you into a Hindu. Yeah, but both sides are wrong. It's just yoga, okay? And so if you say, I gotta learn Sanskrit before I do yoga, well, first of all, I don't want to do yoga, so that's a perfect excuse for me, thank you. Okay, but secondly, be realistic, dude, that's not gonna happen. If you use that as a vehicle to teach more people about Hinduism, not force it on them, but teach them about Hinduism, great, that's a win for you.
Yes.
Take the win, go home, right? I mean, go home to another country. I mean, in Canada, in that case, in the US, and be like, yes, celebrate it. Hey, look at this Hindu tradition that the whole world's doing now. That's not a bad thing, that's a good thing.